Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for the October Vault webinar. My name is Amanda, and today Blakely and I will cover tips on how to make officer transitions successful. Our agenda for today is how to file taxes for your chapter, how to maintain and update an external bank account register, the bill pay menu within Vault, setting up your spring billing, Vault user access and officer listing updates, and just some general officer transition reminders. As always, we welcome questions along the way, so please feel free to ask, but let's keep them general. Any specific questions pertaining to your chapter or how your organization uses Vault, please reach out to your customer support team at Omega Phi. For more than 30 years, Omega Phi has provided technology solutions to help customers manage their finances, streamline their operations, recruit new members, and communicate with their members. We are based out of Columbus, Georgia. We securely process more than 1.1 million per day for our clients and have securely processed more than 4 billion since 1992. We're also deeply committed to serving, promoting, and advancing the fraternity and sorority experience. We are passionate about what we do, and it's this passion that has encouraged our clients to trust us to do the heavy lifting so they can focus on their mission and having fun. So moving on to tax filing, each year your chapter is responsible for filing a Form 990 with the IRS. You want to make sure that has been done so your successor will not have to worry about having to file any previous Form 990s. Late filing or failure to file an annual return will result in IRS late penalties or fines. 3 consecutive years of non-filing will cause an exempt organization to lose their exempt status. So let's answer the question, when is your chapter's Form 990 tax return due? The Form 990 tax return is due to the IRS by the 15th day of the 5th month following your chapter's fiscal year end. And just because it's submitted on Vault on the 15th doesn't mean it's been submitted to the IRS. Ideally, you should submit the 990 report as soon as you can after your fiscal year end. 990 reports submitted less than 2 weeks prior to the return due date will be extended and you will be charged an extension fee. With that being said, these are the dates your Form 990 tax return is due. May 15th for fiscal year ending 12/31, October 15th for fiscal year ending 5/31, and November 15th for fiscal year ending 6/30. So if you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to switch over to Vault and we will go over some menus within Vault. You can find your chapter's fiscal year end in Vault under the chapter menu and then chapter detail. You can also see your federal tax ID number that is located on this page as well. You'll need to write that down so you will have it when that question appears on the 990 report. To submit your 990 report, you'll do so directly in Vault under the accounting menu and then tax filing. To submit your 990 report, you'll need to answer the question, are your chapter's gross receipts 50K or less? Oftentimes, this question is answered yes incorrectly, and answering it incorrectly will cause you to have to resubmit the form and delay the process. It is very important to check your income for the tax year before answering that question. And to do that, you'll click on Accounting, and then Income Statement. You'll click on the Report downward button and choose the Income Statement Detail. You'll adjust the report dates to match the tax period, and then you'll click on Submit. If you determine your chapter's gross receipts are more than $50,000, you will then need to reconcile your income expense report. The most common reason for an income expense form imbalance is that cash transactions have occurred during the tax period that are not recorded in Vault. Often this is because the organization has an external bank account outside of Vault. An example of an external bank account would be a checking or savings account your organization maintains at a local bank. If at any point during the tax year your chapter transferred funds from Vault to an external cash account at a local bank, you must enter those transactions into the 990 report. You will need to have copies available of monthly bank statements for your organization's external bank accounts for each month of the tax period. To avoid having to update a year's worth of transactions, we recommend updating your external bank account on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. This will also help your successor so they don't have to contact you when it's time to file their 990 report. To update your external bank account register, you'll go to Accounting and then Account Registers. And under Bank Accounts, you will see your external bank account. One thing to note, OmegaFi only records transfers to this bank account that comes from one of your bill pay funds. However, we do not have access to your external bank account, so we do not know what expenses or income go through that account. This is why it is your chapter's responsibility to keep it updated. So to do that, you'll click into the register, and then to add income to the register, you can go to the Quick Entry tab. You'll click on Receipt. And from here, you'll put in the date, the payer, the amount that they paid, and then the income expense amounts for the account. You can choose one, or you can split it out. The more detailed you can be, the easier it will be to submit your 990 report. So for example, if John Doe makes a payment of $500, but $250 of that is chapter dues and fees, and the other $250 is national dues and fees, you can split that out to show on your register. Then you can put in any notes and then enter the date it cleared your bank. If it hasn't cleared your bank, you can edit the entry at a later date for when it does. And once you input all that information, you will then click on Create Receipt. To add an expense, you'll click on the Disbursement tab, and you'll enter the same information that you did for the receipt section. You'll put in the date, the check number, the payee, the amount, and you can also split those amounts up as well. Any notes and the cleared on date, and you'll click on Create Disbursement. If your chapter does not have an external bank account and you use bill pay exclusively, you will not need to take this additional step. Vault does all of this for you and makes it that much easier when it's time for your chapter to submit their 990 report. This is why it is best to use Vault for everything. This includes setting up scheduled charges, processing all payments within Vault. If you need to add additional fees to a member's account, do that in Vault as well. That can include t-shirts, fines, etc. Use bill pay to pay vendors and order an officer purchasing card to help with expenses that need to be taken care of immediately. Again, make sure to process all payments through OmegaFi. Do not collect locally, because if you do, that is an extra thing you will have to record when submitting your 990 report in Vault. And as a reminder, make sure to cover tax filing during officer transitions. Make sure your successor knows when returns are due and if your chapter is current on filing. Now we're going to review most of the content under the bill pay menu, but I need to switch to a different account to demonstrate this section, so give me just a moment. Okay, within bill pay, the bill pay menu, all bill pay fund registers and officer purchasing cards are under the register section. Both active and inactive appear on this page. Bill pay funds are listed with the available balance, which includes all processed transactions, pending deposits, pending payments, and pending transfers. You can select a bill pay fund or officer purchasing card to view the register detail. The register detail lists all deposits, transfers, credits, or payments. Balance information is listed at the top of the page, and the date range is editable. You can select the pencil icon next to a payment to view the bill summary and payment history. To edit the bill, select the Bill tab. The invoice number, expense account, and notes are editable. The bill image and vendor register are viewable as well. If you need to update or edit any information not editable from the form, please contact operations support. So moving back to the registers page, you can select Add Fund or Add Card to provide your operations support with the information needed to assist you with setting up a new bill pay fund or ordering a new officer purchasing card. Under the Action column, you can select the $ to initiate a one-time transfer from another bill pay fund, officer purchasing card, or associated external bank account. Please note, officer purchasing cards must be funded from a bill pay fund. So moving on to the payments section. The payments section is broken down into 4 tabs: outstanding bills, pending payments, scheduled payments, and calendars. The outstanding bills section shows unpaid bills. You can filter the list, select criteria in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. To authorize payment, select the box in the bottom right corner of an outstanding bill. Select the plus or minus sign next to an outstanding bill to expand or collapse the bill information. Under the pending payments, they are listed by fund. Each column is sortable, and you can select criteria in the drop-down menu at the top of the page to filter the list. To authorize any of the payments, select the box under the action column for the pending payment. Scheduled payments are typically recurrent and entered in advance with specific criteria such as vendor start and end dates, frequency amount, and auto approval. If signature requirements are met and funds are available, scheduled payments are processed at 2 p.m. Eastern each business day. If you need to delete a scheduled payment, select the trash icon. The calendar can provide a monthly, weekly, or daily view of bills and payments and their associated due dates. Moving on to transfers. All pending and processed transfers are listed within the transfers section. To add a transfer, you'll select Add, and you can choose one-time transfer or scheduled transfer. You'll enter the amount you wish to transfer, select where you're transferring the money from, pick where you're transferring the money to, the type of transfer, ACH or wire, and any applicable notes. A wire transfer can be initiated for same-day credit from a bill pay fund to an external bank account for a cost of $75. ACH transfers do not cost anything, but it can take a day or two to be made available. Transfers between bill pay funds and bill pay funds to officer purchasing cards occur immediately. Under the vendors section, vendors are merchants or individuals who are paid via bill pay. The vendor screen lists all vendors your chapter has ever paid via bill pay. Each column is sortable, and you can filter the list of vendors by selecting criteria in the drop-down menus at the top of the page. To add a new vendor, you'll select Add Vendor, and enter the required information from the vendor detail. You can view and manage specific vendor information, including the vendor register, bills, and payments, scheduled payments, vendor files, and vendor profile. Also, under User Access, this page lists bill pay users and the permissions for a specific bill pay user. This is important during officer transitions to make sure that incoming officers have the appropriate access that they need for bill pay. You can select the plus sign in the top right-hand corner to add bill pay access for a current vault user. You can select the trash can icon to remove bill pay access for a current user, and you can click the user's name to see their current bill pay permissions. When granting bill pay access, you must grant it at the overall vault level and on the bill pay fund level. Just because a user has managed access to the bill pay menu does not automatically give them access to the specific bill pay funds. Once an officer is given managed access to the bill pay menu, you will then update their user access within bill pay. You'll click into their user profile to give them the appropriate access. So starting with bill pay global permissions, you'll click on this pencil icon and you'll grant all permissions and click submit. And then next we need to give them access to the appropriate bill pay funds. You'll select the plus sign and then you'll select the correct bill pay funds and give them permission and click on submit. Now, depending on what the bill pay user needs access to for your chapter, you'll do the same steps to grant them access to each applicable fund. This, as I mentioned earlier, is an important step in officer transitions to make sure your successor has access to bill pay funds. So let me check to see if there are any questions. If there aren't any questions, I will transfer this over to Blakely and she will go over setting up spring billing, vault user access, officer listing updates, and general updates to prepare for officer transitions. So give us just a moment while we transfer that.
Sorry about that, folks. So as I was trying to say, thanks so much, Amanda, for sending this over to me. So now it's time to start planning for your spring semester, and a great way to prepare your account for your new officer is to go ahead and get that spring billing set up to ensure that the new officers will really only need to make reviews and make updates instead of setting up their billing from scratch. So to begin billing setup, we're going to go to the billing tab and select billing overview. You're going to see your current billing setup, so whatever you have set up for fall. And if you'll click on Setup Billing here, it's going to let you walk through setting up your billing dates. So you'll either select spring 2023 for this term, or if you're on the quarter system and you need to select the winter, you can set up your term that way. From here, we're going to select our first due date. And then the system is going to populate some dates for you based on that due date to make sure that your cycles are set up appropriately. And so typically we're going to have that set up so that you're getting one statement each month. You can make some adjustments to how many dates after your due date you'd like that late fee to be charged if you've got a late fee set up, or for accounts that are showing in the system as past due. So again, that can be anything from 1 to 7 days. And then if you need to add additional cycles, you can create an extra cycle down here. And of course, you can turn late fees off for some cycles by simply clicking on those boxes. And you can have late fee setups for just the first cycle or not on the first cycle and for all the cycles afterwards. Whatever works for you guys, whatever you have as part of your chapter protocols. So once you have your cycle date set the way you'd like, you'll click Next. And you'll be able to edit charges. So it's always going to ask you to copy the charge from a previous term to use as your template. From here, you have the ability to add any billing groups if you need to make adjustments there. And then you can go in and edit charges for all of the current billing group setups. If you click Edit Charges, it's going to again show you what your previous scheduled charges were for this billing group. And then you can either copy those charges or copy charges from another billing group to use as a template. And from here, you can make adjustments as needed. So if you needed to adjust your accounting fee, we can go ahead and do that. You've got chapter dues. As a reminder, if you're doing installments for your chapter dues, we do suggest that you make that clear in the description. So for instance, in this case, we have irregular payments of $100. We would call these chapter dues installments. If we wanted to do $100 each month, I would call that 1/5 chapter dues. Making sure that you're really clear with your descriptions just really helps those parents feel like they have a handle on what to expect in terms of billing for the semester, and it can cut down on some of the questions that they may have when they are just getting a chance to look at just your statements and not necessarily getting the full picture from their student. Once you're happy with the charges that you've set up, you'll click Save. And why it's not showing those charges and letting you review and approve them, I cannot tell you, other than this is a test account, so it's a little bit it doesn't always work as smoothly as your regular vault account. So let's see if it'll let me go forward. There we go. So now we're able to review and approve those charges and those updates that we've made. Once we're happy, we'll just click Save and Complete. And then spring billing is set up and ready to go for the next semester. So again, this is really going to make things a lot more simple for new officers. If you can think back to the first time that you used Vault and how, the descriptions of using billing cycles and billing groups, maybe that was a little bit overwhelming at first when you're taking on such a big role. So this is a great way to kind of prepare them for success. Now all they have to do is go in and make some edits as needed, make sure that the chapter roster is up to date, and connect with us to let us know that everything is good to go. So this is a great way to set them up for success. You also do want to make sure that we are keeping that roster up to date. So this is another way that we can get this account ready for them, get everything cleaned up and ready to go. So don't forget to review billing groups and billing statuses for your members. Again, you can update your billing groups to make sure that everybody is getting the correct charges assessed to them. If you need to move everybody out of the new member group, that would be a pretty popular move this time of year. Move members from the new member billing group into the active billing group. You'll simply click here to select everybody in this group, and then click Update Billing Group. And that's a quick, easy way to clean up your billing roster. We also have the billing statuses that will need to be updated. So this is not necessarily the most typical thing that you're going to see this time of year, but you may have some members who are graduating in December. So take a look at your roster, see if you've got some members who are going to be moving over into an alumnus member status, and that's their standing with your headquarters, because likely they also need to have their billing status updated from active to inactive. So just like we just saw with the billing groups, it's a very similar process here. You'll filter by active, you'll select the appropriate members, change them to inactive, and give their billing status reason. So we have a lot of reasons that you might be moving somebody to inactive. Maybe they're going to be abroad next semester. Maybe they've graduated, or left school for other reasons. Maybe they're transferring. So if you've got some people making some moves at the end of the semester, go ahead and get that updated for your new officer so that things are clean and ready to go for them as much as possible. I'll pause there to remind you about some of the terminology we've used, because I do know that those things can get a little bit confusing. So remember, billing groups, that's what charges we have set up for our members and what they're going to be charged. So any member in the same billing group is going to get like charges. Billing status is either going to be active, so they're receiving charges, or inactive, so not receiving charges. And then member status is your standing with headquarters. And those are some great terms for you to make sure that your new officer understands. Our team is going to be making sure that we reinforce that message. But as you know, there's a lot to take in as you're coming into Vault and then learning how to use not only this software, but also taking on a new role. So anything that you can those tips, those tricks that you can pass along, those are great for the officer transition. And as always, this is just a good general reminder, we do have this Get Help section here. If you click on this button, it's going to take you to our knowledge base. If you haven't used this before, highly encourage that you take the time to click around. This is going to be a great resource for you to share with new officers. So any billing questions that you have, you can click here and you'll find all kinds of how-to articles. We also have videos and all of our webinars recorded that they can find here as well. And if you have any questions as you're going through and trying to get the account cleaned up with them, this is a great resource for you as well. So we also want to take some time today to just discuss quickly how once new officers are elected, you're going to need to add them to the officer listing and update their vault access. So first we'll go to the chapter section and go to officers and make sure that you know how to update those officer listings. So from this section, you'll click Edit Officers. And if you have a current officer, we're going to be passing this from Max to Peter. So we'll say Max is going to leave office on December 1st, and Peter is going to take over December 1st, and we can leave this to blank for now. If you have a member who's going to be staying in the same office, you can just leave them as is. You don't need to make any changes there. And again, if you're just selecting a new officer for the first time, we'll pick it from the drop-down list and then just put the date that they're going to take over that office. All right, so once we update those officers, they're going to automatically be granted a vault account. And that Vault account is only going to have access to the manage the communications section of Vault, giving them the ability to send mass emails, send out chapter calendar updates, polls, announcements, or add documents to the resource center. So every officer has that ability, but most of your officers are going to need a little bit more than that to be able to perform their duties on Vault. So once you've updated the officer listing, you'll go to this gear icon here and select Vault Users. From here, you'll be able to just select the pencil icon, and you can make all of the updates you need to make for these officers' access levels. So, you know, if you've got an undergraduate officer who you don't want them messing with Vault access levels, you don't really need them to have access to billing, but they do need to be able to update your member roster. You can just give them chapter access. And so you'll see down here, this is everything that they're going to be able to do. Edit the member roster, pull those reports, update chapter information. This is typically what permission details for someone who might be like the chapter secretary or something like that might look like. If you have somebody who is going to be working you know, with the treasurer to make sure that billing and accounting and accounts receivable and payable are keeping all that in line, they're going to need access to the billing section, the accounting section, which has all of our accounting reports, and bill pay as well. So you know, you can customize these user permissions for everybody as needed, and they may not need full managed access, but they may be able. You may want them to be able to see the current state of things and be able to pull reports. So in that case, you can also give them view-only access, which again gives a little bit of limitation, but still allows them to get in and pull the reports that they may need for their job. Once you're happy with those user permissions, you'll just click Submit. And they'll immediately be able to access the areas of Vault that you've made available to them. So again, as these officers are coming in, we want to give them access to Vault as quickly as you can. If you can do it before you are officially passing the baton, that gives them a little bit of time to get in, click around, take a look at our help center, and get comfortable with Vault before before you officially pass the baton and lose your Vault access so that you can work with them. So make sure that you are keeping that in mind. and planning some sort of a transition to make sure that you introduce them to Vault and to pass along the contact information to your support team, and just really make sure that they have what they need to be successful in using Vault and getting set up. So just as a reminder, now that we've covered sort of a wide swath of things today, here are the things that we suggest that you do to ensure that your successor is set up for success. Make sure that your tax filing is up to date. So if you're not sure, you can organization on the IRS's website. They have a tax exempt organization search, and you can review the most recently submitted 990s there. If you're not up to date on your taxes, please contact 990@omegaphi.com, and our tax specialist will be able to work with you to help you get more information about how to get current. You also want to make sure that your external bank account is up to date in Vault. It's also a good idea to go ahead and make sure that you are familiar with your external bank's process for updating the account owner so that you can get your new officer transitioned onto the account, and make sure that there's no issue there. Sometimes those processes, particularly with local smaller banks, may require you to go in person and actually sign over the account. So make sure you're aware of those processes. Again, now is the right time to go ahead and get your spring billing set up. And while we're talking about spring billing, I want to make sure that you don't forget to set a calendar reminder for December 9th. That's the last day that you can set up spring billing and still be eligible for our cold hard cash drawing. So again, set that spring billing up before December 9th and you're eligible to win $1,000 for your chapter. And then last but not least is updating that member and billing status and ensuring that your member roster is up to date at the end of the semester. If your national organization uses Vault to process initiation reports, also make sure that you've submitted all of those in a timely manner and that they've been received by your headquarters. If applicable, your chapter should also make sure that your new officer has, once they've been added to Vault, that they've registered for that officer purchasing card. If you're using bill pay, so they have access to those bill pay funds as well. If you have any questions about any of the things that we've talked about today, please pop them in the chat. But before we go, we do want to let you know that we'll begin our new officer training season at Omega Phi next month and begin putting out some communications that are targeted to help these new officers get comfortable with Vault and ensure that they feel empowered and supported in their new roles. So please encourage your new officers to keep an eye out for communications from us about upcoming webinars with helpful tips and tricks in their email and whatever else we might have planned for them. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We'll stick around for a few minutes and answer any questions that you might have.